Jake Paul, he uses AI deepfake for one of his products. What it does is in the post-purchase, when you purchase his product and it arrives in a box, you open up the box and there's a literal video of yourself from the future talking to you about how great the product is and how happy you are that you bought it. So OpenAI is releasing something called Search GPT. So it's basically like a search engine in itself, and it can almost replace Google in a way.
This made my blood boil. Not everyone uses desktop software. Like mobile everyone uses mobiles a lot more than desktops. So like Lucas says, if you're boosting on your phone or you're running ads through your phone, which a lot of people do, they're going to charge you 30%.
If you're using an Apple device, yeah.
So last year, what happened is we had the conference. So all of our resources and time and efforts went to the TEIA conference. Now, TEIA conference was really good. And, we made some money from it. Like compared to all the webinars we ran, it was a fraction of the revenue. Okay, so we spent a year doing this, 6 figures, like spent all this money, and webinars make more money. So like, that's why we started doing it.
Why do we talk about like how we use that process and how others can use that process like right now?
Welcome to Inbound Buzz. My name is Moby Siddiq, and I'm joined again by returning AI expert and Red Panda's head of content, Mr. Luca Troisi. How you going, my man?
Hello, I'm going so well. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Since we've had you last time, you actually had an MMA fight.
Oh, yeah, because I haven't been on since then. Hey,
yeah, that's right.
That was the most wild experience.
That was an incredible experience. Like, we're calling Luke around the office the arm breaker, Troisi, because he literally broke some dude's arm.
Honestly, he was so tough. Like, credits to him as well, because he went the entire round with his arm broken, and I had no idea. The entire round, I had no idea that had happened, because he had like such a straight face and he was still like throwing really powerful strikes. So I just didn't know. So credit to him as well. It was really fun. It was a crazy experience.
I hope he's okay and
he's good now.
And
yeah,
he can go to work and support his family after what you did to him. Anyway, all good. Look, so I'm so excited here. Obviously, you're our resident AI expert, which means we're going to be talking about AI today. But let's kick it off with some exciting news buzz that's making the rounds.
Okay, so I'm super excited about this one. So Jake Paul, you may know him. He uses AI deepfake for one of his products, right? So he's selling like a deodorant line. And what it does is in the post-purchase, when you purchase his product and it arrives in a box, you open up the box and there's a literal video of yourself from the future talking to you about how great the product is and how happy you are that you bought it. So like, he's literally putting the marketing message that he wants to give you in your own mouth now. Yeah. It's crazy.
So I don't know if he's going to do that with every single person who buys, but he's definitely doing it with other influencers.
Yeah.
So the one that you shared with me, Luca, he sent it to Little Yachty. I don't know where these people come up with their rap names. Like I miss the days of just Notorious and Biggie and Tupac. But anyway, and you're right. So Luca's right. He sends it. It's like it looks like a little locker. You open it up. It's got photos of the guy, and then it's got a screen embedded, and it's like, hey, Yachty, this is me. This is you 5 years from the future. And you used to smell, but now use our stuff and it's really good. But that's crazy, man. And like then obviously Yachty is now like sharing that with his audience. And we're talking about this, man.
It's crazy because it like adds credibility where there's none. So like when you have to build trust through education, now Jake's doing it because he's literally feeding that message to the customer. And I know maybe he's not going to do it with everyone, but even just doing that through the influencer route is building credibility. And it's crazy. And he's also like positioning himself as a hero in that way. Imagine when this gets like scalable and you can do it with like any customer, or if you could figure out a way to do that. Crazy.
It's going to happen. Like everything that's out now, these things weren't scalable. Now they are.
Yeah.
And it's kind of freaky.
Yeah. And I guess it raises a question like, if you're not using AI or you're just on the cusp and you're just using ChatGPT a little bit, how could you use something like deepfake to, boost your brand? What could you use it for? How can you use it innovatively? So I think it definitely raises a question there for anyone listening to this.
Yeah, like you're talking about this before, the ethical point.
Yeah,
around this. It's I don't know how I would feel about that. Like, because deepfake there's a lot of controversy about it, and
massive, yeah.
People using stars' faces for like pornography and stuff. It's like it's really bad, But so Jake Paul, that's his brand though, being outrageous, being whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised like if a lot of these people who are sharing that, they might be in on it. But the point is the technology and how crazy it is. So
yeah, it's wild. Yeah, and like again, once it becomes scalable, that's when I guess those ethical considerations come more into play. It's going to be really interesting to see how it grows like that.
100%. But thank you for sharing it, because I think just knowing about these things, it broadens our horizons
100%.
on how things like AI and deep fake, I guess, can be utilized.
Yeah.
What's next? What else we got?
So next is so OpenAI is releasing something called Search GPT. So it's basically like a search engine in itself, and it can almost replace Google in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is already replacing Google for a lot of things.
To an extent, yeah.
And on that note, like, I know, Luca, we've been playing with a lot of different tools like Perplexity and Claude. Like, this space moves really, really fast, and even Copilot. So I think it's not the point of the news buzz today, but as a sidebar, it's really like what we do now. The thing is, you can't buy everything. So we've got a subscription to ChatGPT, but we also use Perplexity now and again, Copilot. They have free versions. So sometimes what I do, if I'm running a prompt in ChatGPT, I just copy and paste it just in another tab into Copilot or maybe Perplexity. That's hard to say very fast. Right? And I run all three and see what it looks like. And dude, you know what's interesting? ChatGPT isn't always the best, man.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Because I'm like a diehard on ChatGPT. Hey, like I'm on there. That's my thing. So I'm not really going, like, I've used the tools and then I'm like,
See,
like,
for someone like you and for our listeners as well, what I would recommend is like just play with it, because it's so funny. If you're using it, you're so far ahead of everyone else. But then there's like levels to this. Like Marcus Sheridan was talking about the fact that a lot of what he's using it for, Claude, is yielding him a lot better results than ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So again, I agree with you, Luke. I think it's good because you can't buy every single suite under the sun. Like, buy one. ChatGPT is worth buying. We've spoken a lot about it, but all these other ones, like Copilot has a free. It's a browser, like in a browser version, has a free one. Perplexity is free. But going back to the story itself, like with Search GPT, it's like them chomping off Google's market share isn't enough. Now they're like releasing Search GPT.
Yeah, I see it as an opportunity because like they've said that publishers, so like websites and whatnot, are going to have the opportunity to manage how they show up in Search GPT. So it's basically like, in a way, a second SEO, right?
100%.
So there's going to be practices. There's going to be ways to boost your SEO in Search GPT, which is going to be really interesting because now it's like, okay, you're not just on Google. It's like now you're on Search GPT, and I think it's going to be pretty popular considering. And then if you can kind of get to the top there, you're going to start getting more brand visibility as well. So it's definitely opening up a completely different, not just user experience, but like experience for brands.
Yeah.
On search engines as well.
There's definitely an AI arms race right now.
Yeah, literally.
And seriously, like, I like this quote here. The next Google won't do what Google does. Eric Schmidt said this, ex-Google CEO. And, Sam Altman from OpenAI says he's got no interest in copying Google. Already the language learning model yields so much better results for a lot of things. So this is really the start of, like, this is kind of like when Google just came out and we didn't really know where it was going. It's amazing stuff.
Makes me think about like when email first came out, and obviously I wasn't really around and
you weren't born.
Yeah. I wasn't born. There you go. But it just makes me think of like that story, the fact that everyone was like, nah, and then like it's become something that's so integral to like everyone's lives.
Like I was early in the office, so Linda was asking me around. She was asking us in the office, like she's like, because I was at the CEO Institute yesterday, and she's like, she was asking me like it was about innovation.
Yeah,
and she's like, was AI covered? Or is AI something that people are kind of getting over? And it was a very interesting question. And I thought and reflected, like AI was mentioned here and there, but it wasn't a topical theme. And I actually do believe that the hype and interest around it has started to peak, and people are less interested because like, oh, it's just a hype, but it's so not. And I think I get really excited by that because it's like almost like the lazy part of me is like, oh, well, sucked in, you lazy people, I'm not going to get left behind.
Yeah.
It is so not a hype. It's, if you think that, and this is like a trigger for you, because I've met like some of our clients, like, talking to them about AI, they're like, one got really aggressive with me. It's like, maybe don't talk to me about that. Like that stuff is, like I'm a writer and it was a writer actually.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a writer. I don't want to hear anything about it. And I was thinking to myself, like, where's that fear coming from?
It's fear of becoming like obsolete, right?
100%. And you really got to question that. It's like, it's not that, it's it's bad or it's just that you haven't learned how to use it properly. You haven't leveraged or tried to learn from people who use it properly, and you're not exploring it because it freaking works.
Yeah, everyone's always opposed to change though, right? Like in the AI course that we're running. So just for context for anyone listening, we run an AI course where we teach people exclusively how to write content using AI. Even in that course, like I've heard feedback that it's not just about like, yes, they've gotten better at their job, but they're becoming more confident in their career as well as professionals. So like being able to use AI, helps you stay relevant. So there's no point, like people are always going to be afraid to change. That's just natural. But like, there's no point. You may as well get on top of it now. And I'm glad that like I'm in a space where I'm doing that. And like, same as you, like you said, I'm glad like we're doing that,
This podcast is sponsored by the following ad. No, but on that note, let's give, because you do have, it depends 100%. Yeah. On that note, it depends on when people are listening to this. Why didn't give the AI course that you're running a plug? Because it sold out last time and we've got a wait list as well. Yeah. But in 60 seconds or less, talk to us about what it is, when it's starting, and maybe how much it costs.
Look, I'll do it in less than 60 seconds. If you want to write, where do I look for the Okay, if you want to write content 10 times faster and ensure that it's revenue generating content, then sign up for the AI course. We only accept 8 spots. We run it twice a year roundabout, give or take. So yeah, we just actually held a webinar and there's a lot of interest around it. So if you're keen, jump on and yeah.
Awesome. Nice one, Luca.
Yeah,
nice.
That's a good plug. You like that?
Back to our regular programming. Okay, cool. Right. So our last bit of news buzz. This really triggered us, right, Luca?
I can't stand it.
Go.
You want me to go? All right. So Apple is basically charging, they did this in the US, but now they're doing it in Australia. They're charging a 30% fee, or they're expanding the 30% fee for any advertiser who boosts ads through Facebook or Instagram. So if you're using like an iOS device and you're a business owner and you boost an ad, like you boost one of your posts to make an ad, you're going to be charged a fee on top of the ad cost. So Apple's charging that now, which is ridiculous. So obviously there's a way around it. We'll get to that later. But it's a war between the tech giants and it's annoying because it's affecting advertisers, especially small business owners.
When you shared this with me, this made my blood boil. Like this is the biggest shot fired from Apple since the iOS 14 update.
Literally, yeah.
When they said to all the advertisers everywhere, it's like, hey, you can't do targeting anymore. Or you can't do funnels anymore. You can't track our ads anymore. You have to have a pop-up that says, oh, is it okay for this app to track you? Right? And this is like, so I know they're all greedy, but this is like really, really bad. Like essentially what Luca's talking about is and this is the thing, not everyone uses desktop software. Like mobile that's just a given. Everyone uses mobiles a lot more than desktops. So like Luca says, if you're boosting on your phone or you're running ads through your phone, which a lot of people do, they're going to charge you 30%.
If you're using an Apple device, which is absolutely crazy.
It's
criminal. It's criminal.
Off.
Yeah.
Like that's not fair.
No.
You know what I mean? It's like, how can they justify that? Like Apple, you only exist because of the ecosystem. And you're like, oh, because they're using our platforms. Like, yeah, but they pay for the app. They pay you for advertising. They already pay you.
Yeah.
And now you're like, F you.
And like, surely they don't need the money. Like, I'm not across the financials of Apple or anything like that.
Of course they don't need the money.
Surely they don't, right? So why? Why make advertisers suffer?
Before we start, throwing furniture around here, let's talk about really quickly how to bypass the change. Okay, cool. So the first one is obvious. So go desktop, right? Simplest solution, unfortunately. And it's like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs too, they do everything on the fly on their phone. Unfortunately, if you're going to be running ads, firstly, you should be using Business Manager anyway. And on desktop, it has far more capabilities and options. Don't do it through your phone anymore. Boost it, directly on your computer and laptop. What about some other ones really quickly?
So we've got prepaid power here. Also, Meta Business Suite's probably the best way to do it, right? So running it through the backend. So rather than boosting posts through like your phone or whatever, I think that's pretty similar to what you're saying. You do it through your desktop, but you access it. So if you run ads, you might know about this, but if you're a small business owner, you're not really across and you want to run some ads, just type into your browser, business.facebook.com/ads manager, with no spaces or anything. If you do that, you'll be able to access your ads portal and you won't get charged anything there.
Yeah, cool.
Yep.
All right. So let's move on to our featured buzz, how to use webinars to generate more money in just 30 days. And I love this because this is an actual story of ours and something we turned around.
Yeah. And this is exactly why we're mentioning it, right? So like a little side story, I hounded Moby for literally like maybe 6 months to a year, telling him like, because I'm looking at all the analytics and stuff of our content, and I noticed that webinars, we ran a webinar ages ago and it generated like the number was like, I think like 50K or something like that, or more than that. And it just like blew my mind. It's like, why aren't we doing webinars, you know? So I hounded you and you were like, let's do it. So we finally did a webinar. We went through the whole process. We got it set up and started making money. And, you know, now we're doing this AI course and it's a thing now. And we're running other webinars. So, you know, that's what brought about this podcast idea.
The story behind that, I think, is really, really interesting, especially like, you know, in the time where people are looking at budgets and stuff. So not last year, the year before, we used to run a lot of webinars.
Yeah.
And that was just one webinar. But I think if you looked at all the webinars we did the year before last, it was well into six figures. See, like every webinar, we're making at least one customer.
Yeah.
And these were high retainer clients as well. And so last year, what happened is we had the conference. Mm-hmm. So all of our resources and time and efforts went to the Taya conference. Now, Taya conference was really good. And, you know, we made some money from it. But really, like, if I'm honest, it was like just an exercise in pure promotion. And we didn't do it. And we've got a podcast with Elena on this. I can't remember the figures. We literally break down with Elena the cost of the conference and all the stuff we did, and not to mention all the people time. But like compared to all the webinars we ran, it was a fraction of the revenue.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, so we spent a year doing this, 6 figures, like spent all this money, and webinars make more money. So like that's why we started doing it.
You have to go through that process of like testing different things, and I think that like it's important to run a physical event too. So it was probably, even though I was so like, let's do it, it was probably important to be like, Luca, hang on, and like run that physical event, because like you said, it was about promotion, right? So it still had like really positive benefits. But now that we've gone back to webinars, we're seeing that revenue generate. So why don't we talk about like how we use that process and how others can use that process like right now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, cool. So I've broken down the steps into 6 steps essentially. So I'll run through them. So step 1, and some of it incorporates like some of Alex Hormozi's processes. So it's not all from me, but we've learned stuff along the way. So we're going to consolidate it. So step 1 is picking a niche and creating a list of problems. So you need to pick a niche and figure out what their dream outcome is. Like, what do they want? And then you need to list the problems that they have in their words. So like, for example, you don't say, you know, the problem is ABC. You would say, I don't have time to write content. Maybe that's a problem, right? So you say it as if it's them saying it in first person, which is really, really important for like the next step, which we'll get to. And when you're creating these problems, what I like to do is I like to do 2 lists. So one list is the problems that they have that you want to solve, and they currently have. And then the second list is the problems or the barriers that they have which would stop them from buying your product or service. So like if it's a fitness program, their problem is they're unfit, right? So I'm unfit and I want to be healthy. That's a problem. But the problem they have with buying your course might be like, I don't have time to commit to a training program, right? And that's like how the 2 lists differentiate. So that's the first step, dream outcome, and then like coming up with those 2 lists of problems in the customer's words.
And I think when we did it, we looked at, so the course, so this is the one that Luca gave the shameless plug around, but the AI for content marketers or AI for marketers course to generate revenue was like, you know, in their words, it's like, I've tried AI and it didn't work. Or I tried AI and, what was it? I tried AI, like the 2-3 ones. I tried AI and it didn't work. One was like Google penalized me for my content.
Yeah, that was.
I tried AI and it sounds nothing like me.
Yeah, it didn't sound human. Yeah.
So then, like that sets that up. So we're talking about those rather than saying like everyone else. A lot of people do this in your market, and this is like if you take one thing away from this segment is when you look at your ads and what you're trying to sell, like look at the problems, and we're going to go to next step 2, which we're talking about. Come up with the solution to the problem, as opposed to like, hey, you know, here's an AI course, or
don't lead with we.
Yeah, don't lead with we, and don't. Otherwise, it sounds like, and I've spoken about this maybe 10 times on this show. Otherwise, you're selling a vitamin, not a painkiller. And everyone buys vitamins. I don't know about you, but when I buy vitamins, I never finish it, just sitting there.
Yeah.
But when I need a painkiller, I need it yesterday, and I'm going to pay far more money for it.
Yeah.
So that's probably the big thing. But yeah, let's go to step 2 and rewording it as a solution.
And can I just say one thing on that note as well? You mentioned the AI course. So like that problem thing can be used for webinars, but then it can be used for like products as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah. So, okay, step 2. So rewording those problems as solutions. So this came from Alex Hormozi directly. It's a fantastic process. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking each of those problems and then you're putting how to in front of them. Simple. That's all it is. So if the problem is, I can't get ChatGPT to sound like me when I'm writing content. The way you would reword that as a solution is how to get ChatGPT to sound like you when you write content. You know, if you can't do a fitness program because I don't have time to do a fitness program, it's how to do John whatever's fitness program with, even if you only have 5 minutes a day, like whatever it is. So it's just rewording it, putting how to in front of it and then rewording that problem. And that is key because then that does what you say, which is like talking to the problems first, right? Yeah. And the whole exercise should take 5 minutes, right? Like you list all of the problems and then you just rewording them should take like 5 minutes because all you're doing is putting how to in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like the way we titled the title, and we'll link it in the show notes so you guys can register, buy the course and actually learn something.
If it hasn't filled up by then.
If it hasn't filled up by then, it's literally finally use AI to create revenue generating content with no time and budget in 8 weeks guaranteed.
Yeah.
So that is what Lucas said, like on steroids. We're talking about the problems. Like, so for example, it takes too much time. Well, you're going to do it in no time.
Yeah.
It costs too much with no budget. So that's literally rewording not all the problems, but a lot of the core problems in a title for the offer.
Isn't it weird that like we're positioning the solution from a problem perspective? Like we're literally just rewriting the problem, but it sounds like a solution.
And you can't do that until you work out the problems.
Exactly, which is why the first step's so important.
Yeah.
Cool. So once you've got your problems and you've got your solutions, then you have to make your webinar plan. So obviously that involves like, you know, creating the content that you're going to use in the webinar, like your slides, and whether you want to use a script or a dot point list, and maybe we can talk about that. How in my opinion, I think like how you do it is up to you. But from my experience with doing it with you, Moby, I learned some key things that like I saw really made a difference in like my delivery. And obviously I've done it a few times now. Before I get to those, is there anything that you think is like key in, you know, creating your webinar and making that content?
Well, I mean, just to kind of set it up, what was interesting. So we did the webinar twice, right?
Yeah.
So the first time we did it, we got a 4-point-something% conversion rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which wasn't too bad, right? Then we're like, okay, let's make some tweaks. And a lot of the tweaks we made were from Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
And we were able to go from like literally double the conversion rate to like almost 10%, 4.7 or something, whatever it was.
I think it was either 9% or 11%. I can't remember which one.
Right. Whatever.
So,
I know it at least doubled.
Yeah.
And like, it was like little tweak, which was amazing because it was almost the same amount of people. And like one of the big things was, and like you and I really looked at like the structure. And there's two things, and forgive me if you're going to mention this, but we can just bounce off each other here. The first one was storytelling.
Yep.
Right. So the first concept, we didn't do that much in the first webinar, but in the second one, you story told a lot more. You're like, hey, like when I first started, and like you were talking in the minds and the problems of the persona. So something like, you know, like as a, you know, content marketer, you know, Moby's giving me this task and then this task and like, you know, got to do all these things. So like, it probably is true, but whether or not it's true or not, you know, we want the audience to be like, oh, yeah, hey, that's me. And when I first started, this stuff used to take me this long and this long, but now I'm able to do like the after state.
So to touch on that storytelling, I thought that was really smart because like in my mind, like no one wants to hear about you, right? No one cares. Like they care about themselves when they're watching this webinar. But the way we tell the story was like so brief, but it was just like a little injection.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm a content manager. He was my problem when I started.
It's just a few sentences.
And it feels like a story, but it's only like, what, a minute? Like not even?
Yeah, not even. And it's, Luke, it's so funny you say that because sometimes I read some of this stuff and I'm sure our listeners get this too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God, this is so spammy. Like as if anyone's going to believe this stuff, right? Like, and we don't have time to go into detail, but the landing page we spoke about, there was another version before that and that didn't convert at all. And I remember sharing that with my coach and my coach was like, dude, it's okay, but you're not talking about the problems you're solving.
Yeah.
Like, what are the outcomes? Like, you're just like, here's the thing, and this is what you're going to get. Gosh, shit, you know? So, like, it's just amazing, like, those little tweaks that we made. But yeah, so the storytelling was really, really a big thing, but it was such a small thing. And I remember when I'm like, man, this sounds so wanky. But it was really good.
It made a massive difference in the engagement as well in the comments. I noticed that. And I feel like it added a personality to, like, who I was. So rather than just giving value and education, I was almost empathizing with the audience, right? Which is really interesting because then you're saying like, hey, I'm you. And when someone feels like you're them and you get them, they're more receptive. to whatever education.
And by the way, if you want a replay of this, we'll give it to you for absolutely free. Just reach out on anywhere, right? Whether it's our LinkedIn or email moby@redpandas.com.au or luca@redpandas.com.au. We'll give it to you for absolutely free. And you can see it and get all the goodies there. The other thing, there was probably like 4 or 5 things, but if you watch the webinar, you'll see it. The other thing that we did really well, actually 2 things, part A and part B. What Expert Secrets talks about is when you have a call to action, just have one.
Yeah.
Just have one clear call to action. And what we had done the first time, we were like, oh, look, we got this group coaching thing. But if you want if you want something a bit more intense and whatever, or more done for you, we've got this thing. And then if you want it at your own pace, we've got this.
So to add context to that, just for anyone listening, at the end, we basically had like an offer, but we gave them like 3 different options.
Yeah.
Right?
And in like, we thought we were being really smart. It's like, hey, is it easy, medium, and high option?
Yeah.
Like it makes sense. And we want choice. The thing is, we think we want choice, but we're not very smart and we get very, very confused.
Mm-hmm.
So how our psychology works is we need to be funneled into something. So Expert Secrets talks about, don't do that. He's like, one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy shit, we made a big mistake there.
Yeah.
So we changed that. And then the second thing, or part B with that, was value stacking.
Mm-hmm.
So as Luke is going through, he's like dropping these little elements, like here's a thing, here's a template, here's a thing. And then by the time we got to the value stack, it's like, look, we're going to give away the webinar. We're going to give away this custom GPT, this thing, this thing, this thing. And I swear to God, I remember when we were rehearsing, I swear, and guys, this is for everyone, because I feel like as marketers, we're too nice. We can be too nice, because as we were doing it, I'm like, oh my God, this just sounds like a Danos Direct commercial. Like, but wait, there's still more.
Yeah,
you get this.
You feel a bit of like self
999 and 997. It didn't effing matter. We did that.
It worked.
It didn't. We literally doubled our conversion rate. The first one, I think we got 1 sale after a day. This one, people were buying in the freaking webinar.
Yeah. It was like,
and if you watch the replay, you'll hear it and see it. It freaking works. So I don't know if you remember anything else, and we can move on. Yeah. But that was some key things.
Look, I think that was really the majority of it. The only other thing I'll mention is that, which was a big learning for me, and it might seem obvious, but like less is more. So like when I first made my webinar plan to deliver this webinar, obviously like I wanted to put in as much value as possible. And you taught me to like tone that down and pull it back. And what was interesting was that when I pulled it back and I deleted like a good quarter or half of the webinar, it actually flowed much better. So if you are someone who's making a webinar, you're building that, when you finish, try to cut it back as much as you can. That'll make a massive impact.
I heard something yesterday that you'll appreciate, Luca, because it summarizes what I've always been saying around this.
Yeah.
Don't show up to throw up. And that just resonated with me so much because, like you did it the first time when we were rehearsing, and I used to do this a lot, is we just try to pack so much value.
Yeah.
Even when I coach clients, in communication or sales, they're showing up to throwing up, and it's like less is more, to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's smash through the last few as we're hitting time. But what was the next step?
Cool. Awesome. So the next one we can go through really quickly. We don't really need to go into the details, but obviously from there, you create all of your marketing materials necessary to promote the webinar. So that's going to be like your landing page, your emails, your ads, and everything related to that.
Because it's all following that whole principle of a problem solution.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you're just repeating that even in the ads and the emails,
100%.
whatever. The fifth one is then to go live with your webinar, and you kind of touched on this already, but to on-sell something within the actual webinar and to make sure that the whole thing's recorded, right? So like we talked about how at the end of the webinar, we had an offer. At first we did 3 options. Then the second time we just did 1 option. It worked better. What you on-sell needs to be really strong and needs to speak to those initial problems. So like what's interesting is that step 1 is helping us with the webinar and getting that set up. But now it's helping us with building our offer that we're going to present at the end of the webinar to try and on-sell people something that's actually paid. Your on-sell needs to be really strong, right? The offer that you give in your webinar. So I want to know from you, Moby, because I think you could add some value here. What do you think is like the key part of getting your offer right? Other than having just like one option, what's the key part of having that offer
It's really quite simple when you think about it, and in hindsight. Like the first part is definitely a level of something unique that isn't just like, oh, cool, if you're interested. So we're a digital marketing company, right? So if you're interested, buy one of our packages. Like they can kind of do that anytime. So, and also that's high friction. So for example, for us, it might be like an audit or a checklist or a quiz. We've done that too. Like when we did the conference and I was talking about sales, I directed people to an audit, and that it's a self-assessment tool. It gives you a score out of 100 and then recommendations, right? So something that's low friction, easy. So if it is an offer, then it has to be, again, something that's unique. And then the scarcity thing is really big as well. So it really sounds like, wait, there's still more. It really sounds quite salesy, but actually, if you do it properly with the story, with the value stack, there's an art to doing it. It doesn't, and like, it didn't feel salesy, Luca. Like,
it didn't.
The way we followed it, and I honestly, and guys, this is for you. If you're doing a webinar, watch how we did that one, because it's a really good template on how to sell without selling. For sure.
You know why I think it didn't sound salesy? Because we stacked so much value that we believed ourselves that it's such a good deal that we can't believe we're giving it away. So you have to like create your offer in a way where you like literally think it's so good.
Yeah, and Alex Hormozi talks about this. He's like, you know, you look at lead magnets. People say lead magnets don't work, ebooks don't work. Yeah, probably, but it's never value. Like, it has to be so good you would charge for it.
Yeah,
that's what. And like, you just reminded me of that. It has to be so good you would charge for it. So if you do you're in a consulting company and there's an assessment you normally charge for, cool. Give away part of that for free. For free. Like, man, I think the thing is, if you feel a little bit like nervous about it, it's like It's like you said, like, we were genuinely excited. Like, this is some really good shit.
I feel like if you feel uncomfortable about it, that means you're doing something right. Like, if you feel like a bit like, oh, should I give that away? That's a lot. Then it's like, hell yes, you should.
I say that about pricing too. When you meet your clients, you need to charge high enough where you start feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a topic for another day. But anyway, let's keep going. What else was the last? All right, cool.
So you got your offer sorted. Now, the last step, obviously, you run that and you make it work, right? You do it live and everything. You make it work. You get the purchases. Now, once it works and you've got that formula down pat, then you want to automate it. So you want to use the software like, which we're now doing, use a software like Webinar Jam or something like that, or EverWebinar, and you basically plug in your replay. And you can automate the entire process so it looks like a live webinar to new users who've never seen you before. But really, it's just the recording that you had previously. And in terms of like, because when you're in the webinar, like someone's probably thinking right now, if they're watching this, oh, how's it going to look if you're responding to comments and the comments aren't there? Well, you can pre-fill comments. So like if in the real webinar, you actually like spoke to people and answered the questions, well, in this, you can set names up and stuff and put the questions that come up at different timestamps so that it looks like you're actually live.
Yeah.
So everything that you would do live, you can do through the software and it looks real. And it's brilliant because you can run it on repeat every day, every week, multiple times. Like, and it's just insane.
Yeah. Wait till Fung finds out he went to our friends at AM Visuals. He went to I don't think he knew, he went to a pre-recorded webinar.
Yeah. Well, what's great about it is that, because one thing that like will bring registrations down, and we know this, is like the time you set the webinar, right? Because some people just aren't going to be free or they can't make it, whatever. I mean, even today we held an automated webinar and someone couldn't make it but registered and sent me an email asking if they could get the replay or whatever. So if you run through a software like this, you can actually set it up. So if you're using a software like this, you can actually set it up so that the user is given the option to do different times. So you can be like, oh, this webinar is happening on this day at this time, this day on this time, and so on. So then they can pick which one they want to register for. And because it's automated, all of them are going to run in the same way, but to them it looks live. And that'll increase your registrations too. So a lot of cool things you can do with this software. But automating is definitely the next step.
But look, I think that's a lot there, jam-packed. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys found some value. And just a reminder, if you got any value at all, please share this around. Please, if you're listening on iTunes, leave us a review, and on Spotify as well. It really does help the podcast. I think I had some haters there to go downgrade a couple of comments on Spotify. So I would love your help, genuinely would. And guys, we'll join you again for another episode. Oh, by the way, if you want to see Luca back, let us know. We'll have Luca back.
Okay.
You know, let's let the crowd sort of push it.
Should we do like a hashtag?
Bring Luca back? We can.
Yes. No, because that makes me sound like I'm dead. No. I don't want no jinxing stuff. Let's forget that.
We can do that, but it's like what marketers try to create hashtags and no one follows them. You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
Oh, I like it.
So yeah, you can try. You and your mum and us, we'll hashtag it, but I don't know.
My mum?
Yeah, your mum loves you. She would not hashtag bring back Luca.
My mum just, no, I'm joking. I was trying to make a joke, but then I started laughing.
All good. All right, guys. Thank you once again. We'll join you again for another episode of Inbound Buzz.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Inbound Buzz. Learn anything? Return the favor by spreading the word. Want to make your mark in digital? Need help with your digital strategy, inbound, and marketing automation efforts? Then visit redpandas.com.au and be sure to tune in next time for another Inbound Buzz hit.